starting, I don't know what layer this is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm on layer number 8. I'm anticipating doing 10 layers at least. This is 21 feet long, 22 feet long, something like that. It's 3 feet high, and I'm using about 75 cans per row. So 75/10 is 750 cans. That's a pile of cans right there. I'm gonna use all those up easily before I get this finished. So I've had 3 or 4 big bags of cans. I don't know if you see them over there. Try to tilt the camera. And I used them up in the first 2 rows. I was just, what? I was just amazed how many cans this really uses. I thought 3 or 4 big bags of cans would solve it. Not even close. Fortunately, my coworkers that I work with are all bringing me cans. Some of them drink a lot of pop, some of them drink a little bit, or beer or whatever, and they're tea, yeah, whatever. These 12-ounce cans are the perfect size for this wall. Now, the dry concrete here isn't something you want to put wet concrete on like this right here because it won't adhere well. So go ahead and soak it. I just got kind of an industrial sprayer, fill it with water, just kind of soak it down a few places. It dries out pretty quick though, at least in my environment it does. So one of the hard parts of this is keeping the concrete from falling out the front. I have a lot that's falling out the back. You can see it's all kind of piling up here. And that's kind of a waste because I'm not as careful on the back because I can't see it as well. So if you're working on one side of a wall, just keep that in mind that you want to kind of feel along the back side. The concrete mixture, I'm just going to try to show you. When I squeeze it, it does fracture and break apart. But it does pretty much stay together, okay? So it's not really falling apart right there or falling off. It's not too wet, too drippy, and it's not too dry. And I don't know exactly how to explain what ratios to tell you because I can't do that. But once you start doing this, you'll be able to look at your cement mixer, look inside your cement mixer and go, that's a good mix, or that needs more water, or that needs less water and more cement. So I'm just going to take a blob of it here. I'm trying to stagger these like this. So I'm going to end up putting a can right here. So I'm going to put a little bit more mud. I want to put it high up here on the can right here and have it kind of slope down to this edge right here. And this is probably too much mud right here for this one. This is going to spill way over. But I'm just going to try to push it in the front here to try to keep it lined up. I'll also take my hand and do this just to make sure these cans are mostly lined up. On the back side, the same thing. I want to kind of push it down like that to kind of roll the edge into the lower cement, so sort of help tie it together like that. Okay, now there's my can, so I'm going to make a little V right here for this upper can. I'm going to push a lot of cement out, so then you just pinch it into a V like this, so you have basically a flat spot here and then a V like that. Now as I push this down, it's really going to push it out the back, so I'm going to, and see that big blob that just fell there, I didn't catch that in time. And then I want to try to make it as level as possible across here. Now I'm going to take this in the back, see how it's all squished out. I'm just going to squeeze it around here, try to work it around, and then work it into that spot right there. We'll pull it this way, and then we'll just kind of work it back into right here. So hopefully that'll tie that in right there. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll try to drag it up from here and then put it right there, because that's where I'm going to need the next part of my bulk. So it looks pretty level here. I'm going to take my hand here and just run it down like that just to make sure it's flush. Then I'll take my hand and tamp it there just to make sure the cement's kind of gotten all up underneath the can and attached to it. Make a second check back here just to make sure it's flush. Done. Let's go to the next one. And you can already see I'm pretty good right there. I want to make a slope down to right here so it's pretty flat right across here, maybe a little bit of a bump. And the more you can pad it in place, it kind of helps it bond to the cans below. It helps it bond to the cement below. Okay, take our can, it's a whole can. We'll just pinch it once like that. Good. And now I'm going to work it straight down here. And this is obviously compressing out the front more than is the back. So I'm just going to bring that around, spread it there. Bring this around, spread it here. Now, one other thing before I forget. The old Mike Reynolds books, because I don't have any of the new ones, the old ones talk about making this space about 3/4 of an inch between cans. I'm obviously making this bigger, like 1 inch to 1.5 inches in some places. I need this wall to be pretty strong this way, so I'm okay with using more concrete. It's going to cost me more in money and labor. But that's okay, because I'm going to have dirt piled up in here that's going to be pushing on the wall out this way. That's one reason I put all this rebar in here. Even though this is a short wall, I probably get away without it. I'm still going to put a cement veneer on here, a cement plaster coating on the front and on the inside, because I want the inside to be pretty smooth as well. So the inside is going to have the rubber lining against it, right? EPDM rubber. So just get another can here. Okay, so not a lot squished out in the back there. So I'm going to tamp this down, tamp it down here, try to pull this off the front and bring it around the side so I don't lose it. And it feels good in the back. I'm just going to run my hand down the face of it like that to make sure it's good. And you can see that's getting a little bit dry right there. Let's go ahead and moisten it up. I don't know if it has to be wet, but it should be not dry. Okay, that much I know. How wet is wet? I don't know. This I'm not the expert at. This is just how I'm doing it. Okay. And I can feel this squishing out back here, so I'm going to take it. I'm going to kind of press it as I go, so I'm squishing the cement as I'm dragging it off. I'm also trying to keep not leave big chunky holes back here. As I drag it off, it'll kind of open up a hole, and so I'm trying to prevent that from happening as well. Okay. Still feels good on the front. This one I'm going to have to smash a can up against the rebar like I did here on this side though. So just go ahead and put some mud around here. We'll go ahead and put some right there as well. So there, I still have my inch or so, 3/4 of an inch or inch right there. Okay, look at that big chunk back there I just saved, kept it from falling. Woo, that was lucky. So I don't really want to spread it over the lath right here. Right now I want to try to keep this open, because the cans all facing one direction are going to be like lath. Okay, so then when I've spread my cement, see it's all covered up right here. It's pretty rough, so the cement will still stick here, but I'd rather have the cans exposed like that and like that. Okay, and like that, instead of covering them up like I'm doing in places. I shouldn't be doing that. Must not be a can there. Because this is what, as you spread your cement plaster over this is what's going to allow it to stick. It has something to grab to. And so if you're building a wall and you're just going to have one wall as the visible wall, that's the one you want all these facing, because that's where your cement plaster is going to be, or your cob plaster, or whatever you're using for plaster. Okay, this side isn't going to be visible, but I still want it smooth, so I'm still going to put a layer here. But it's going to have dirt piled up against it, and so it's going to have rubber here, and then it's going to have dirt piled against it, sand and rock, so that it's going to be pushing up against this wall all the time anyway. So if something does try to break off in here or get loose, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay, let's keep rolling here. I haven't timed myself to see how fast this goes per row. But I think the other day it took me about 2.5 hours to do 2 rows, and that's mixing my own cement and putting it all down. It went pretty quick. I was kind of surprised. If you have somebody mixing for you and a couple people building a wall, you can build these pretty quick. The trouble I ran into when I was building these can walls up here and up here in the corner on these sides was that I would do a layer, do a second layer, and then do a third layer, and my mix wasn't very good. Sometimes it was real soupy, and so it would be sagging out, not just sagging out, but when I put that third row on, it was so much weight, it was pushing down on the first and second rows and making that cement sag out. So it didn't So what I ended up doing is just doing 2 rows and then stopping. I think now with my consistent mix, I could get away with 3 rows. But this wall's so long that once I do this row and then come back and do this row, by that time, usually the bottom layer is getting pretty hard. So depending on how long your wall is and how much time it has to dry and solidify, you just have to kind of check it, see how hard it is. And if it's hard, you could probably keep going. I mean, if it's pretty firm, you could probably keep rolling and keep building on top of it. So I think the more can layers you put on, though, the riskier it gets as far as your wall starting to shrink from all the weight on wet cement down here, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, I want to keep those open. All right, let's get some more cement. And if I can tell my cement's getting dry and sort of hard, where it's starting to get crumbly and just flaky, I'll just stop at a half a bucket, spray some water in it, mix it around. Don't fill it up because you won't be able to mix it well. It just takes a little bit of water, just a little spray, just enough to get your mud wet. Because you can overdo it really easily is what I'm saying. So be careful about how much. Always put in less water than you think you'll need, and then add some more if you need to, because once you overdo it and then it turns to soup, then you have to get some more aggregate, some more sand or cement or both to thicken it up again if you overdo your moisture. Okay, and these little 2-gallon buckets or 2.5-gallon buckets, whatever they are, I really like, because a 5-gallon bucket's great. It moves a lot, holds a lot, but honestly, it for me, I'll fill it up, and then it's so hard on my back carrying 5 gallons of cement that it's just not worth doing. So these limit me. I can only fill it up full. It's not super heavy, and it's still workable. I can still move it around pretty easily without straining myself. Okay, it's still fairly damp. Okay, there's some from the old can in there. All right. Okay. And obviously messing with this one pushes that one and pushes it out of place, so you have to kind of go back and check your other cans and make sure they're, just give them a pat, and that's kind of helps helps the cement get back in place against it. Okay, good. Let's go ahead and spray. So this may be kind of a long video because I'm not going to touch my camera with my cement gloves, but I'm just kind of talking, and as I make mistakes, I'll point them out. You can see the cement's getting a little dry. See how it's not really flowing together well? And so what I might do is go ahead and put some water in that bucket, and we'll get it. It was sitting outside for 30 minutes or so. Okay, still trying to keep this as level as possible. I suppose you could use a level if you want to keep this perfectly level. I'm hoping that my last layer I'm going to be putting just above this rebar right here, or maybe a little bit higher than this rebar. So, and see how it's just kind of that crack right there, and those cracks, they're just not really flowing together well. So I'd like that a little bit more moist. So let's add a little bit of water here. Whoa, that's probably too much. Now I'm gonna have to dig down pretty far to get this to spread around. Okay, that's pretty good. That's a little wet though. A little wetter than I want it, so just try to dig up some of that drier stuff from the bottom and mix it around. Okay, now this I can tell just by feel, this is going to sag really easily. I put too much water in it. And this is why I say you only fill it up halfway if you think your mix is already kind of dry, which I should have done out there. It looked a little bit dry to me, but okay, this is starting to feel a little bit better now. Okay, and you can see the fibers right there. I don't put a ton of them in, but I put a few fibers in. Structural concrete fibers. Okay, yeah. That's flowing much better. We'll tap it there. Tap it there. Go ahead and make sure it's flush. Check the back again. Yep, good. Now here around this rebar, I'm not going to be able to put anything very easily. I have to put a can right there, but okay, good. I watched an old video of Chris Simpson, Mike Reynolds' wife. Holy cow! And it didn't show very long. It didn't show very much of her building a can wall, but she was super fast. Her hands were just like. Obviously, she'd done it so much, she knew exactly what she was doing. Very efficient. And that's the thing, the more you do this, it'll feel real uncoordinated at first. You're like, oh, the concrete's going to fill out the back, and I can't hold on to it, and what's it going to do, and where's it going to go? And the more you do it, the more you understand what you need to do. So it's just one of those things, once you start practicing it, you'll feel more confident in what you're doing. Okay, so for the second layer, I'm not wetting it because the cement underneath is already wet. But what I found is standing, instead of standing straight in and working on the wall like this, if I can stand to the side where my body's perpendicular to it. See, that can went there, this can actually goes here. I can keep two hands on it as I compress I can kind of check for level like this. I can keep a hand back here so I'm losing much less material. And it's actually going much faster that way. That can will go right there. Just check to make sure it's going in the right spot. Okay. That was kind of a big blob. Let's get a little smaller blob. And you can see my mix is a little wetter, which is good because it flows, but it's also bad because it sags. Make sure that's still where it needs to be. Leave a little bit of a gap between the cans. I like to leave a little bit of a gap just so the next layer of cement can fall into it and get good purchase rather than having it perfectly flat across here with cement. So, two reasons for kinking the can. I'll show you here as soon as I get this one in place. Maybe there's more reasons, I don't know, but I know I can see two reasons now that I've been doing this a little while. You kink the can, it doesn't really have any structural strength like that, but you put a kink in it like that, and a ridge or a seam, and that gives it some strength. Also, that gives you a V to push it down into the cement, and it pushes down in the cement easier. Building out of trash. Pretty crazy.